Hello and welcome to the NHL Best Bets. Yesterday there were 5 games and we had 2 picks. This time we concentrated on total bets and it was a split decision here. Islanders visited in Buffalo. Game was quite free hockey when we think these two teams and at the end Buffalo won it in shootout 4-3. So during the regular time there were 6 goals, so a bit over 5.5 goals. But in Pittsburgh Philadelphia game there were a lot of goals. Final result 7-3, so clearly over, and it looked like these teams repeated what they did a day ago, only swapped the positions. Earlier it was Philadelphia that scored 7 and Pittsburgh 2. Now it was 7-3 for Pittsburgh. Tommy, do you think that all the games will be over until end of the regular season?
It does look like that. It's opened up a lot all across the NHL now. It's understandable. A lot of teams have nothing to play for, so it's a lot easier or a lot more fun to play offense than sacrificing yourself in the defense. So for those teams, at least, it seems that it's much more active and kind of open. Free-flowing ice hockey, which is a good thing in entertainment value, of course. That's what we saw in Philadelphia now. Pittsburgh Penguins going to the playoffs. Flyers are not. Penguins lost heavily the first one. They were not good in that game. Now they bounced back and showed that, okay, this is the level that they are capable of playing, and Flyers didn't really stand a chance in that game. A lot of goals, good goal scorers in both teams, so 10 goals altogether. We were wondering if one of the teams will solely go over that six goals line, and it was Pittsburgh this time. Previously it was Philadelphia, so a good over there with nice value. It was a good pick from us. But on the other hand, then the other game that we predicted to go under, New York Islanders usually is a very under-like team. They don't shoot a lot, they don't allow a lot of shots. This was completely wrong assessment of this game. Islanders shot 48 times on goal, Buffalo 31 times, so it was a very open game as well. Buffalo, of course, nothing to play for, so it's understandable from them. But New York Islanders, in order to win games, they cannot go into these sort of shooting gallery games. They're not that good offensively. I do think that this is something that they will improve, and they will be much more defensive when they're facing the teams that are probably going to fight with them in the playoffs, if they still do. And heading into playoffs, they do need to play a lot tighter defense.
Yesterday you mentioned that some of these underdogs can surprise, and it was New Jersey this time that took a victory in overtime against Boston. Do you think some of these favorites are now preparing for the playoffs and resting their top guys?
Yeah, at least in some ways they are probably going to do that. There's likely to be a lot of nagging injuries for the key players, so you play a little bit less, maybe give a power play chance to the bottom 6 guys, do a little bit of variation to get prepared, because in the playoffs, if something happens, your key player gets injured, whatever it is, you have to be a little bit better prepared. So for Boston, for example, this is an apparent thing that they did now, and also they did secure their spot the night before, so heading into a new game against the same opponent might be a little bit difficult mentally to prepare, and New Jersey of course wanted to bounce back from that loss, so it's a good win for the Devils, a nice value for us. It was plus 183 odds for the Devils, as it was for Buffalo plus 230, so nice profits from these underdogs last night.
How about overall our simulations performed last night?
Yeah, it was a good day. Only game that we did not get right was Carolina-Chicago. We did predict that Chicago would have a better chance to fight against Carolina, a lot better team, of course, Hurricanes. They beat Chicago comfortably 3-6, so that was a wrong pick. But otherwise, all the 4 games were correct, and plus 422 side value from one night, so pretty nice profits there. In the totals, 50-50, so 2 correct, 2 incorrect, and moneyline also in the zero, actually -50, because of those underdogs, of course, were under 50% in the simulations.
Tonight there is again more games. There is 9 games scheduled, and we have selected few here. We repeat a little bit what we did 2 nights ago. This time it's Montreal that plays in Ottawa. 2 nights ago it was Winnipeg. Both teams don't have too much to play. Montreal still need to secure their spot to playoffs, but they are quite comfortable staying at 4th. Ottawa has played well both against Montreal overall and recently at home, so value plus 154 odds is too good to be passed. And then Washington, New York Rangers. 2 nights ago we picked Washington. Now we go for over. These 2 teams are not trying to put too much defense on. They don't have anything to play. Washington still maybe wants to have home arena advantage for the playoffs, but Rangers are already out of the playoffs, and they are just trying to enjoy their chance of playing NHL hockey for a few more games this season.
Yeah, very nice odds for tonight's games here. Let's go first to the New York Rangers Capitals, because we like the over here. They scored a lot last time. It was 3-6 for Capitals. Similar sort of thing expected now. Rangers, nothing to really play for. They're a very offensive team. Young guys love to play with the puck. Capitals, similar sort of setting in the offense. Very offensive team. They can also play good defense, but I do not think that they would go to New York to try to defend their way to victory. I think they will try to outscore their opponents, even if they might be resting a couple of key guys. I think Ovechkin might be out, Oshie could be out, but it doesn't really matter. If you give these chances to the bottom 6 guys of that team or the younger players, they will step up and take the chances that they get, and it's an offensive team. I think the over here is a great pick, and with those positive plus 110 value, I think it's an interesting over here. In the simulations, we have 66% going over 6.0 goals, so it looks like it's going to be a very, very heavy scoring game, and let's see how it goes. It should be another interesting matchup between these 2 teams. And then our favorites again, Ottawa at home against our not so favorites, Montreal. It's a risky pick, of course, when you get these odds of plus 154, but in the simulations, Ottawa is winning 47%, which would be a lot more like a coin flip kind of a game. Ottawa's played well against Montreal. These 2 always have a lot of electricity between them, a little bit of a neighboring rivalry as well. Ottawa out of the playoffs, Montreal pretty much certainly already in. It's going to be a very tight affair. I do think that Ottawa might have the chance to surprise, and with these odds again, it's a no-brainer. We were expecting a lot closer to 50-50 odds.
Then in West Division, there are a few interesting games. First of all, Vegas continues their road trip in St. Paul. They play 2nd game against Minnesota. These teams might face each other during the first round of playoffs if Colorado push forward and takes the number 1 spot in the division. But how do you see this kind of game that may be the setup also in playoffs? Are they going to hide something and don't put all the cards to the table, or will they play as they have been playing before?
I think it's going to be more of a psychological battle here, that they are probably going to try to outsmart their opponents, play a little bit more defense, I'd say, than usual, and be at least not to lose heavily. That's more important than maybe taking the win here, because both teams have secured their place. They're quite confident in the way they are playing now, so it might be a lot closer. I think in the simulations, we have exactly 50-50 game, and that's what it's going to be. So I think it's a preparation for the playoffs. Maybe not hiding their performance or their advantages or their sort of what brings them power, but because these teams have faced each other so many times that they know each other already, but definitely trying to outsmart the opponent and keep them at bay, to frustrate them, to a little bit maybe aggression as well, would be nice to see, because these teams are likely to meet in the playoffs at least some point.
And another game, Anaheim plays in St. Louis. St. Louis still needs a bit to secure their position for the postseason. Not too much. I think one win will most probably do it. Do you see that these teams like Anaheim that are already out of the picture and maybe are resting top players there, they don't have any chance, and it would be just a one-way street? Anaheim hasn't been playing very good during the season. Now they have lost 7 out of the last 10. So is this no-brainer to bet against them?
Yeah, actually in the simulations we have exactly the same values as the odds are set. So St. Louis winning 70% of these games. I do think now when St. Louis still has something to play for, they need that one win to secure their playoff spot. I think they will beat Anaheim tonight, and Anaheim is not good enough team to match St. Louis in any department. They have a great goaltender, but that's about it at the moment. So I think this is a one-way street, and this is St. Louis game to take. They do need to secure their playoff spot, and this is the game they're gonna do it.
Then for the North Division, Winnipeg lost the 7th game in a row, and they are now going to Calgary to meet Flames over there. Flames have been playing a bit better home this season compared to previous ones, but is this the game when Winnipeg will snap their losing streak, or will it be 8 in a row after tonight?
It might be 8 in a row after tonight, because Calgary, like we mentioned yesterday, Calgary has everything to play for and nothing to lose, so they need to win all their games the rest of the season in order to fight for the playoff spot, and it's not in their own hands because Montreal only needs 2 points, I think, or 1 point. So it's very, very unlikely scenario to happen. But when you're playing hockey against a team that you met already many times this season, you want to beat them anyway. So I think Calgary is favorites here in the simulations. 53% for Flames win, and the odds are 50-50, so small value there for the home team. Winnipeg hasn't shown anything as of late. They are in deep trouble, so nothing is indicating that they would bounce back. Of course, Calgary, not very offensive team, so something that Jets might be able to use to their advantage, but the way things are going, it's hard to see them winning this game.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how these teams like Winnipeg, for example, will survive in playoffs, because, like you said, they haven't shown anything, and it would be a bit difficult to turn the ship in a snap of the finger. And a few other teams that have 5 or less wins during the last 10 games that are going to playoffs are, like we discussed, New York Islanders. They have only 4 wins, and surprisingly, Toronto Maple Leafs, they have 5 wins out of the last 10 games. So do you think these teams have a chance, or will somebody upset Toronto maybe during the first or second round?
That would be very fitting for Toronto, of course. Now they are finally looking like real contenders in this very different season than usual, and they've usually been out by the first round against Boston Bruins or the likes, but I don't see that as an issue. They have played really well. Those losses they've taken have been a sort of maybe not deserved, or these sort of flukes that happen in the long season. So I have no worries for Toronto. But New York Islanders, yes, because the way they've played lately is not the way that they are winning games, like how Barry Trotz wants them to play. So they've been a little bit lazy at times. They've allowed a lot more chances than they usually do. So if they can't turn into these ways that they help them to beat the likes of Tampa Bay, Pittsburgh a couple of years back, then they are in trouble. And in the Eastern Division, the top teams are so tough that it might be still impossible for Islanders to win them, even if they can play the defense the way they are at their best.
Let's see how they bounce back, even though they are not so good form that they can show how they can do whatever they want. They have been more like doing what the opponent are letting them to do recently. And Buffalo was a good example that even though that's not any kind of top team, they were able to shut down Islanders at the end and winning in shootout.
Yeah, that could be some sort of tactics played by Barry Trotz, that they are allowing the opponents to think that they're not as good, and then when the real games start, they will pick their pace. But that's very unlikely. They still have a couple of games in the regular season to improve and start playing the way that they can beat. And then everything is, of course, possible when it is playoffs time. As we've seen, nothing is set in stone.
Let's see how these 9 games go tonight, and we'll be back tomorrow with new analysis.
See you tomorrow.